So then I learned more about argan oil. It has a really high concentration of vitamin E and, antioxidants, essential fatty acids. So that's very antioxidant rich and it's very healing. And the thing about argan oil is it's not greasy. So it absorbs really easily into the skin, which makes it something that is easy for most people to incorporate into their skincare routine. So I loved it.
All right. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the next episode of the Beauty and the Brand podcast. We're here with Katharine L'Heureux, founder of Kahina Giving Beauty, a 15-year-old indie beauty brand built around the superpower ingredient argan oil. And one of the first indie brands to really take sustainability and fair trade seriously. I've had the pleasure of working with Katharine and the team at Kahina on and off over the last 8 years. And so I'm super, super excited to have Katharine share the Kahina story. Welcome, Katharine. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, thank you. Great to be here.
Yes. And so we're going to dive right in. I have so many questions for you because you have such a rich story. And, one of the most incredible things about you and this family business and this brand is that, it's an indie brand. It's been around for how many years now?
We launched, it was conceived of in 2007. We launched in 2008, 2009. So it's been a bit. Yeah.
It's incredible. And so let's start from the beginning, the moment that sort of changed everything, your journey through the Moroccan desert. What was it about that trip that sparked the creation of Kahina Giving Beauty?
Well, so 2007, I had just had my third child and I was turning 47 and I was, starting to feel signs of aging. I was feeling tired. I was, starting to eat organic foods and take care of myself. And I was looking for, a more natural organic beauty product. And I was using Dr. Hauschka, which was nice, but it wasn't really living up to, the promises of the traditional luxury department store brands. So I felt there was a gap in the skincare market at the time. But I wasn't really thinking I would do something about that. I happened to take a trip to Morocco with my parents in 2007, and it was the three of us, and we had this incredible trip traveling from Casablanca to Fez down to the desert and Marrakesh, and we just I just fell in love with Morocco. And during the whole time, we were saying, how could we go into business here? What can we do? Maybe we should import rugs. And, but it was just kind of joking around. And on that trip, I was introduced to argan oils and I hadn't heard of this product before, this ingredient. And it kind of I loved it. And so in the back of my mind, I said, maybe this is something that I could do to connect to this incredible place that I just fallen in love with. So it just kind of an inkling of a thought started then.
The best business ideas come from travel.
It's true. Well, it gets you out of your, just day-to-day grind and helps you to, think, cracks your brain open a little bit and think differently about things. Yeah.
And before this, you were in PR, right?
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about your background before you started.
So I'm from San Francisco and the Napa Valley. My family are vintners in the Napa Valley. My siblings and I still own and operate a vineyard in the Napa Valley. We grow Cabernet grapes. So that was instilled in me at a very early age, this idea of terroir, where only, the best things are site specific and grown carefully in the area where they're supposed to be grown with real intention. So that was a big part of it, finding my argan oil sourcing and where, finding just the, best quality argan oil. But also I was a co-founder of a public relations firm in San Francisco called Wells Phillips. And we were responsible, my partner and I, for launching Thomas Keller's The French Laundry in Yountville. So getting to work with Thomas and, just his uncompromising vision, never just relentless pursuit of perfection, and never, just he would just only do it, the way he wanted to do it. And those things really stuck with me. Just this idea of perfection, and just never giving in to what other people are doing or saying, and just always using the purest ingredients. So those are probably the two most impactful experiences in my past that I brought to Kahina.
I love that you shared that, because I think it really brings to light your approach when you started this business. And I know the painstaking efforts that you and the team have gone through in how you source argan oil, how you support, the ethical sourcing of argan oil. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, when I started the brand, and I had this idea that I would bring argan oil to the United States, it wasn't, I had never heard of it before. I think Josie Moran was just starting her brand, and Moroccan oil was, none of these things are on the market yet, but they were soon to be. So there was just kind of a zeitgeist around it at the moment. I think that actually argan oil was only just then being allowed to be exported because it was kind of
interesting,
relegated to Morocco. So I decided to bring argan oil to the United States, but I really didn't know that much about it at the time. So I took a deep dive into learning everything I could about argan oil and its production and what makes the best quality argan oil. So when I first was introduced to it, it was in the souks of Marrakesh, at a, their pharmacy, typical traditional pharmacy, which is how most people are introduced to it. But those are often not the best quality because they can be mixed with other oils, often a cooking oil, a sesame oil, or, it's not the best quality nut. So I didn't know that at the time, but I wanted to, I didn't know how to source the oil. So I decided to go back to Morocco, and I returned many, many times to travel around the rural south of Morocco and visit the Berber villages. And I just, took a very deep dive into finding the best oil. And it didn't happen on the first try. It was a challenge.
That's interesting.
I didn't understand how they did business there. I didn't, I had to learn that the best argan oil comes from high in the mountains, not by the coast.
Interesting.
And I had to find my way to these very remote places. And eventually, just through contacts I made, I found the most wonderful group of women making argan oil high in the Atlas Mountains outside of Taroudant. It's a very remote place. You have to get there on a 4-wheel drive or a donkey. So it took a lot of trial and error, and about 4 years in before I really got to what I think is the best argan oil.
Wow, 4 years. So that was going to be my next question: is how long did it actually take you to find this incredible source of argan oil?
Well, it was
4 years in the making.
Well, it was so random the way I did it, just thinking that you could go and just, buy argan oil, and without understanding very much. And I had criteria, the vision was really to help communities there too, because in rural Morocco, where the Berbers mostly live, the Berbers are the indigenous people of Morocco, of North Africa, really, but partly in Morocco. They're very poor, and they're socially conservative, Islamic, and the women have very few rights, and they're very private. So it was very hard to kind of penetrate that and find the right, there was a language gap. There was just an inability to really socialize. And so with the help of a really good friend in Morocco, who we drove around, and we ultimately found connections that led us to this this wonderful community of women in the Anti-Atlas Mountains. So, but first, I was just going to like the traditional, typical cooperatives that are like centered around Essaouira, and we would just go, and it was part of the learning process. We would go and we'd listen and we'd try the argan oils, and but then we'd say, okay, I want to buy 200 liters from you, and they'd say, oh no, we can't do that, because they were mostly for show. They were just kind of these places that they would plop some Berber women down to sit and crack nuts.
Oh, interesting.
But they weren't actually making, doing the processing and the pressing and filling. So,
okay. I have so many questions. So many questions. I'm like jotting down notes. So it's interesting. Why was it that there were these pockets of people who were doing this for show, I imagine for tourism, but they weren't actually producing the argan oil? Was it just not profitable enough? Did they not see the value in selling it? Like,
I think it was, formed for tourism. So people would go in and, buy their bottle of argan oil and buy their cosmetics made with argan oil. And, and that would be it. Nobody was interested in buying bulk argan oil. So they would, get it from somewhere else.
Understood. The process of this process sounds very arduous, long, complicated. This would stop most people from pursuing this project. Like they'd be like, all right, I'm done. I'm a year in, 2 years in. I'm not going to continue trying to figure out where the best argan oil. What kept you going?
It was one of those things, like even from the start of it, even having to put in a little bit of money or fly back to Morocco and decide I was going to do this, which was, hugely daunting. And, it was kind of unlike me at the time too, but it was a great adventure. It was just fabulous adventure. Like it was so much fun. And I had just, my littlest, I have 3 kids. My littlest was 3. And it was just, and there was a big gap in between kids. So I had been spending a lot of time raising kids, and it was just like really time for something new. And I was excited for this. And it was something that I was doing on my own. And I just wanted to do this. And I made a small investment, even in just buying my plane ticket back to Morocco. It's like, okay, I got to do this. And then you do take another step, and then you're in, and then you're a little in further. And I just kept saying, okay, well, I'm this far, and a window keeps opening over here. And as long as the windows keep opening, I'm going to keep going. And so there was always like a new introduction or a new discovery or something that like clicked and was just happening. But it was always like a little bit at a time. I didn't go in thinking that I would be doing what I ended up doing. It was just like, I'm going to import argan oil. I'm going to go take another trip to Morocco and find argan oil. And it was fabulous. It was great. And it just kept evolving. Yeah, it was incredible. And it just kept evolving from there. So, but I was always like, if something goes really wrong, I'm just going to stop.
Okay. So you were sort of following your intuition, following where there, like you said, there were openings happening. So there was almost a flow to
really
it.
And it was kind of cool because Morocco is such kind of a spiritual place that I was kind of felt that, okay, there's a reason, there's a purpose, there's a reason I'm finding this group of women, and there's a reason that I'm meeting these people, and it was just leading me there. I don't want to be too woo-woo about it, but I really, at the time, really felt that there's something greater happening here because it just kept working.
And it just kept, exactly. And that's when you're onto something. Did you bring your kids back every time? Like, how many times did you go back during that period of time in Morocco? And did you bring your kids every time?
I probably over the first 10 years was probably there 30 to 50 times.
Wow.
And I would go on my own. And then later, as I got more familiar with it, and it wasn't just, the grind of driving around and going into these really small remote villages, it was kind of arduous. It was a lot of work. then I went back. I love Fez and I love Marrakesh. And so I brought my kids, I brought them each
Mm,
separately. And my husband, I bring a lot too.
I love that. And do you still, we're going to obviously go into more detail, but do you still go back? Like, how often do you go back
I
now?
haven't been since before COVID, which is kind of sad. And I was just thinking,
Wow.
I've got to go. But there, there also are a lot of other travel demands having the business, especially
Of
before
course.
Zoom, I was traveling around to all these international markets to introduce the brand.
Yes.
And so like it was my travel schedule got, really full, but yeah, it's time to go back. But also now that I have, with technology, it's easy to do everything remotely.
Virtually.
And,
Yes.
I know the community of women, the Berber women that's running well. We have a system of purchasing and, so that's not really necessary. I go and check on them anymore, but it
Mm,
was in the beginning, but it's definitely time to go back because I always feel like I was such a reconnection with the purpose of the brand when I go back
absolutely.
and reconnected to why I started this, why I fell in love with it in the first place. So right
Absolutely.
now it's just a work. And so it's
Yeah,
time to go back.
exactly. Absolutely. Reconnect to the purpose
Hmm.
and feel the reason why this began in the first place.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much attention to detail and depth you went into in starting this business that wasn't really a business to begin with, but then sort of evolved into a business. It speaks to the credibility to the brand, I think, and to the efforts that were put into finding and sourcing and the best of the best.
Thank you.
So yeah, and talk to me, like, what is it about argan oil that you uncovered in your process in the beginning and then all the way as you kind of uncovered the better and better and better argan oil? What did you uncover were some of these incredible nutrients or benefits to the skin? Or maybe
Well,
you didn't. Maybe you knew, maybe you thought it was going to be for something different.
no, so I was not using oils. Most people in the United States weren't using oils then. And so
Mm-hmm.
always had really dry, oily, unbalanced skin. And, never really felt great or glowy so when I tried argan oil, even though it wasn't the best quality, I was just kind of, oh, this is amazing. My skin just feels good and healthy and the way I wanted to feel. And so even that, it wasn't the best oil, but even just the fact of using an oil was really a game changer.
Novel.
It
Yeah.
was really novel and it was really a game changer. And now I won't do without it. So then
Mm-hmm.
I learned more about argan oil. It has a really high concentration of vitamin E and antioxidants, essential fatty acids. So that's very antioxidant rich and it's very healing. And the thing about argan oil is it's not greasy. So it absorbs really easily into the skin, which makes it something that is easy for most people to incorporate into their skincare routine. So I loved it. And I still stand by it. I've used other oils, but this one, argan oil, is my absolute favorite. We also incorporate prickly pear seed oil in our
That's
line,
right.
which is also I source from the same cooperative in Morocco. And that is a great oil too, with a lot of vitamin K. So it strengthens capillaries and it's brightening. It has even more vitamin E than argan oil, but there's just something that is so nourishing and great about argan oil. There's just it has this kind of a substance to it. It's almost like it's just a beautiful, beautiful oil.
It
Um,
absorbs really well. It feels, it's not oily.
no, but it's
You know what
still
I mean?
got
It's
body, it still has
exactly.
some body to it. It's not like I have like thin oils or things that just don't nourish as much, but it's also, it really absorbs into the skin. So then on my
Absolutely.
travels, as I learned more about sourcing and the best quality, there's like not a lot of quality controls in Morocco. I think it's gotten better than when I started there, but we would do a lot of testing on oils whenever I would receive them. We always test, and there was a lot of contamination.
Really?
I didn't in the beginning, to be honest. When I was just
learning
filling
process
it in my apartment, and but mostly I wasn't selling. I was giving it away to people then, and then decided to sell it. So I was just filling it in my apartment, and I wasn't testing it. I didn't know what I was doing then.
Yeah.
And
who does in the beginning?
So now I know better. Shortly thereafter, I decided to create a skincare line. So I started working with this fabulous formulator who then taught me everything, about the testing and doing the things that you have to do. And it's all manufactured in a clean, state-of-the-art facility now. And, I don't touch it. It's not in my apartment. So,
and you still work with that same formulator, correct?
Yeah.
That's right. I remember. That's wonderful.
It's been a really, really incredible relationship. She shares my philosophy and values about ethical sourcing and the importance of the people who are behind the impact that it makes on people's lives who are behind the production of these ingredients.
Absolutely.
So, it's farming, rising, elevating people out of extreme poverty. It's been a wonderful partnership. I'm sorry, I lost my thread.
No, you're great. I wanted to touch on that more, but let me put a pin in that because you mentioned this relationship that you formed with your formulator. How did you find her, and can you tell us a little bit about what it even looks like to build a relationship with a formulator? Because I hear all the time from our founders, how hard it is to find a good partner, how hard it is to find someone that you can trust, that is reliable, that, really grows with you. Can you give a little bit of a behind
in
the scenes on that?
2008, when I was, started looking, there was some kind of the ICMAD, an organization, International Cosmetics Manufacturing Association, and they had like a registry or directory. And so I said, okay, I'll start there. I'll join ICMAD and I will look at their registry. And I went through, it's huge. And they were all like, they were all Estee Lauder, consultants. Nobody was, and they were all men. And they were all like, and I called a bunch and I said, okay, well, I want to make an organic line of cosmetics. And they said, oh, well, I don't do that. And I don't even recommend it. And like they did, and or I can't even make them for you, but, I'll be your consultant. And it's like, gosh, that's, so, thank God for Google. It was really important to me that I have my product certified organic, and knowing that. So I looked at EcoCert, and okay, what really happened was my cosmetic chemist. I worked with this woman in Canada. And I found her through ICMAD, but she was in Canada and she was fabulous. She was like, she was the only one. She was the only one in the whole registry, and she was a woman, and she was nice, and she got it. And she said, okay, well, I think you need to be certified by EcoCert. So I learned about EcoCert, and then there was a whole problem of her making them in Canada and having them made here. So we had to kind of part ways, but she made the first 4 products for us. And she kind of got us started on our little line. And then I knew that from her, I learned that I wanted to be EcoCert. So I registered with EcoCert. We got certified, but to be EcoCert, your manufacturer also needs to be certified EcoCert.
Okay.
So at the time, there was a EcoCert had its own registry of manufacturers that were certified, and there were like 2.
And
So
she was one of them.
she was one of them. So I went to her, and that's how that started.
Huh.
And so
No, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, you just because if you don't find somebody who's already certified, you have to pay to get them certified. So I was like, get
right,
somebody already certified.
And this is actually what we're seeing now with Mokra, right? You know, anyone who wants to start a line now, they're looking for that Mokra regulation and that Mokra certification and
there's
all that.
So many things. So somebody who you can work with to help you go through the regulatory process to sell internationally. And, all these things are so much. I see other brands, struggling to do it themselves. And it's just, that whole thing can just bog you down and you'll get nothing else done. It really, it takes all the fun out of it. It's just not fun.
No.
So finding a partner like that is really important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Somebody who knows, it's great that you made that choice to say, okay, I'm going to find someone that's going to do this professionally, follow all the regulations, be able to, be in a certifiable lab, all the things. Because I think that sometimes people try to kind of either not skip that step, but maybe they try to do it on their own. And there's nothing, in the beginning, there's nothing wrong with kind of experimenting on your own. But I do feel strongly that, for safety of the customer, but also for the capacity of the founder to be able to sell and market the thing that they're trying to get out into the world, they need that space to do that.
Once you find also packaging, it's just so much easier to get it right the first time.
Absolutely.
So if you formulate something, you're going to go find a manufacturer, and they will reformulate it. They probably won't use your formula because they have their own way of doing things or suggestions, or and the same with the packaging. It's like, just get it right the first time, because having to repackage is just so hard.
Katharine,
and getting your ingredient list
to me
down the first time is just get it right.
Yes,
and make that investment now, because it's going to be more if you redo it.
Thank you for saying that, because I do feel so strongly about that. I feel that it, especially as women and as mothers, it saves so much time in the long run to do it right the first time. Yes. And I'm not saying like A+, at least getting it to, I always say like, get it to like an A-, and then you can make small iterations, but the big things need to be done right in the beginning, because it truly will save you time and money down the road. There's that whole concept, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but the whole concept of like fail fast. And there's all these books around like, leading in, failing fast. And those were written by men who have time when they wrote those books, who had time to make multiple iterations and just like put something out there and like keep fixing it. But I have found that isn't always the case for women who have businesses or jobs and kids and all these other things going on.
I also felt, and I feel like this is part of me as a woman, a deep sense of insecurity. Or not insecurity, but inferiority, especially when I was starting this and talking to all these men in the industry. And to be honest, nobody was doing what I was doing at the time. There were no black bottles on the market. There was no luxury organic. There weren't people selling oils for your skin in department store. And everybody was saying, I don't get it. This is a bad idea. Don't do it. And so this inferiority I had, these negative voices in my head that I think a lot of women feel, just really drove me to work even harder and get this right and make it perfect.
I love that. So you took that negativity and turned it into a drive, which would oftentimes stop
kind
somebody.
of have to. Either you stop, or you block it all out, and you just do what you feel is your vision, and keep going
I
with
love
it.
that.
But you don't want to mess up. You just can't mess up, and everybody's wants you to mess up. Like
Yes,
everybody's, they're like waiting for I told you shouldn't do that, and he's like,
of
no, I'm
course.
doing it.
Of course. And that's where the drive really comes from, is being able to prove like, no, I was actually right. I was
Yeah,
actually right about this.
yeah.
And you were and are a true pioneer on the oil front, on the black bottle front, on argan oil. So, you touched on this already a little bit, but starting a beauty brand is not easy. It wasn't easy then, clearly. It isn't easy now, no matter what people say. It might be a little bit easier now just
I think it's
because
harder now.
really, I think
There's
it's
so
both
much
harder
out
and
there now.
easier.
Yeah. There's just
There
so much
is.
out there now. There's so much noise. I mean, in the beginning, the challenges were overcoming my own negativity
Mm-hmm.
and just doing the work. But now
Yeah.
there's just so much competition, and and since I started, there have become so many more brands. Many of them, raced ahead of me and are hugely more successful, got all this funding. And so that is also in its own way, creates this own set,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can get really caught up in that too. So
Absolutely.
I think it's really hard now to start a brand, but
I feel like I see both sides. I see it's much easier than ever. Like the speed to market is faster than
mm-hmm.
ever. Like what might have taken 4 years could take 2 years, 1 year. There's a lot of tools at our fingertips that make things easier, faster to sell, to market, to create product. But from your perspective, yes, like there is also a lot more noise. It's more crowded. And so it's, that's so much of why I'm always like honing in on like positioning and differentiating factors, and how important it is to get clear on that, because otherwise, how will you differentiate?
Yeah.
But to your point, I think that, what's great about the way your trajectory went is that you've retained 100% of the business. So, while other people have brought in partners and that diluted their ownership in the brand, you've retained 100%, ownership of your business. So that's a huge plus.
Well, it's nice to be able to, call the shots and not
Yeah,
have to answer, just be your own boss.
absolutely. So, with the you touched on ethics and ethical sourcing, and that was actually really at the forefront of Kahina and how you built the brand. It wasn't like a little like, oh, let's make sure we add this charity, or let's make sure we make it ethical, or we use marketing language to make it ethical. You truly took the extra steps to, to make Kahina be rooted in ethical sourcing. So what were, you mentioned like some of the biggest challenges is finding this ethical sourcing, making sure it, it's clean and, safe. How did you kind of overcome some of these challenges, and was there a very unexpected challenge that you had to overcome in order to do ethical sourcing
Yeah. So,
profitably too?
yeah. Well, first of all, I was really just so moved, as I was traveling through Morocco, I was so moved by the Berber women who were doing this work. And I was very careful not to say, I discovered this ingredient, not to be like appropriating any culture. And
Right.
to me, it was really, really important that they are always at the heart of our brand, and that they are paid a fair wage for their work, that we honor them through our story as the artisans behind this brand, and also that we contribute back to their community. So finding one challenge was just finding the group of women who would be able to, sophisticated enough to be able to understand that we wanted to help them as a community, not just,
Take.
yes, pay them individually, but also, can you create a program so that this can help beyond you as a, individually, but as for your
Mm-hmm.
whole community. So,
Yes.
when I went in, it was like, okay, well, what can we do? Can we build a school? Kind of like the most obvious thing. Can we build a school in your village? Can we, what can we do? And it would, instead of me saying, imposing my ideas on them, because I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea, listen to them and do you, what are your thoughts? And can you organize around how we can create programs that would contribute to the community as a whole? And not all of them were able to really get their head around that. They didn't understand the concept. These women are mostly illiterate. They're very
Mm-hmm.
poor. This is the first time they've ever been able to make any money for themselves. And for them to think beyond that and their own needs, which are great, to be, they're very, very poor. They live, in a very, without electricity in many cases, without running water. So their needs are great, but how can we organize to help you as a community to implement these programs? So that was a big obstacle, is just finding a group of women who could organize like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
these women had an association and they got themselves certified fair trade.
Wow.
So, and just to be able
Huh.
to, export, do the papers required to export DHL, it
Unbelievable.
was really challenging. So those things were like finding the right group of women who could understand and that we could enact programs. Um,
Wow.
so that was a really big challenge in the ethical sourcing, just
Huh.
finding the right women and who also understood quality, understood what I needed in terms of quality, on time
Yeah.
shipments, like just the logistical stuff too. So,
Huh.
yeah, of course, there's extra cost to all of that.
Absolutely.
It's certified fair trade. You pay extra for that. There's extra,
Mm-hmm.
the embedded in that is money that's allocated to the programs. And on top of that, so embedded in the cost of the oil that I pay is money that goes to the programs, into the community. And on top of that, we donate 1% of our revenue to programs. Education for All in Morocco is a favorite of mine that
Mm.
allows girls to continue their education beyond the third
Love that.
grade. We've given a lot of earthquake relief after that terrible earthquake last year, building
Huh.
temporary shelter. But so yes, so to make it this commitment, it's been hard because 1% of revenue when you're not making any profit, it's
Mm.
meaningful. I went many years without paying myself a dime,
Wow.
most of the time. Most
Huh.
years, I did not pay myself anything.
Hmm.
So it's not something that, you have to really feel that commitment, but I felt that it
Mm.
was really important to the brand.
Yeah.
And that it would also help build trust in consumers. And I think that that's true. I think ethical brands are now seeing more traction than ever. People care about this, and
Yes. Absolutely.
I
Absolutely. And
care
you've
about it.
done, yeah, and you care about it. And that's what matters, ultimately fuel this entire growth to begin with. And I know that you also, every, year or every so few years, you also give back, like you'll ask the community, like, what is it that you need? And they'll say, like, one year they might say, oh, we need, cows or, livestock.
Right. In the beginning,
And
they really had nothing. They didn't have running water. They didn't have electricity. And this community, it's a matriarchal community. The men leave the village to go work in the cities, because there's no work for them in this village.
right.
So the women are really on their own. So one year, yes, they asked for sheep so they could have wool for their weaving. They were all weaving, making
Mm,
rugs, and they were selling that. And Kahina bought a lot of rugs we tried to sell those. So they each wanted a sheep, and we delivered sheep to them. One year, there was a terrible flood and they needed winter boots and,
Wow.
things. One year we contributed to build a little house for a preschool so the kids could, go for their early education. We built a bathroom so that girls, when they had their periods, they wouldn't be,
Right.
they would, so they could continue school, a private girls' bathroom. So a lot of things that were needed. And now, because, the success of just the purchasing of argan oil, they now all have running water to their homes. So they don't have to go
Mm.
collect it from the well every day. They have electricity strung up to the outside of their house. So they're kind of good. so,
You must
so
feel so proud. Like you must feel
I feel
like
really happy for
you.
them. And what's really makes me so happy, sometimes it can be overwhelming, the amount of need. There are so many, and you feel like, oh God, how can I make a difference? It's just a drop in the bucket, but it does. It really does make a difference. These
Hmm.
little things, and we weren't, even when we were a tiny, small business, everything made a difference there. So every small
Absolutely.
bit made a difference. Just to be able to buy 100 sheep made a huge difference in their lives, just ongoing. Then you
Mm-hmm.
breed the sheep so it doesn't
Exactly.
have to be a
1%
big,
compounds.
yeah, yeah. So it
1%
doesn't have to
compounds,
be,
year over year.
yeah, it doesn't have to be a huge thing, it makes a
Yeah,
difference.
absolutely. Oh, I love that you shared this and that you even, can remember every year and how each year, there's a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until now it's like a self-sustaining community that, is thriving. Like how incredible, like what an impact, you've made.
It's been nice
Has
to see.
made.
It's very heartwarming to
Hmm.
go there and see them, thriving.
So switching gears a little bit into the business side of things. So was there ever, I'm sure you've had many, but was there a moment that was sort of like a pinch me moment that you've had with Kahina?
Well, I think I still look back to the early days as just being the most magical things, with doors opening and finding these communities, and just having access to this part of this fabulous country that most people don't get to see, and going and having the women celebrating with the women, and that was just so incredible. And then I come back and work really hard and just day to day. But then I think early on, in the first to maybe 2010, we got into Bergdorf Goodman, and I was like, oh my God, I've made it.
Wow.
And that holiday, we were in the holiday window on Fifth Avenue.
Oh,
And I have to bring my kids up every day. Like,
oh,
hello,
I
where's
would
Kahina?
too. That's
It was incredible.
incredible.
I think
Did it
I
have,
felt then that I'd really made it.
did that have an impact on like, once you were in those windows and being sold at Bergdorf's, did you find that actually impacted sales? Did it have a
Yeah.
positive impact or did it not?
Oh, it was huge, because from there we leveraged that into Mecca in Australia and Joyce in Hong Kong. And I think, so much of international retail, they want to see what major prestigious department stores you're in. I'm not
Yes,
in any of those anymore, but it was great for launching the brand. Um,
absolutely.
it turned out they weren't quite ready for not luxury organic. The consumer wasn't quite there, and we
Hmm.
as a business weren't quite able to support. It's a very
Yes,
expensive to be in all these places, and required just a huge investment on our part. And
it's
we were a
100%.
tiny company. We couldn't sustain it. But
Hmm.
it did, and I think it's still, that got us our footing, and that was great.
Mm, I love that. I love that, you used it to expand and grow the business, even though you chose to ultimately pull out of those retailers. And I always say, it's one thing to get into a retailer, but it's another thing to stay in. And I don't think most people don't realize when they're starting out, like just how costly it is to be in partnership with a big box retailer. They think it's like their big break and that's where they're going to make, all their money. And it's actually like a money pit.
Oh my God. It's a
You know what
huge
I mean?
commitment. Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
also, for me, it was always at the time, it might be different now, but about newness all the time. What do you have launching? What do you have launching? And ultimately it was antithetical to our brand,
of
because
course.
we are simple. We only what you need, environmentally, we don't want to put out more than you need. For women,
Absolutely.
I don't want to sell women more than they need. It was why I
Correct.
started this in the first place, because I just didn't want to be sold stuff that I didn't need. And
Mm-hmm.
so ultimately, I didn't want to be part of the problem. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
100%. And some people might steer you in that direction, and then you realize, okay, that's not the right fit, and that's
Hmm.
perfectly fine.
Right.
So you've recently had a major surge of growth. You went through, tell us a little bit more about, okay, what happened in those middle years? You got into Bergdorf's, you got into these big retailers, Mecca, you're on cloud nine, you're making, you're getting some traction. Tell us a little bit more about like year 5 to 10, like what kind of happened in those years, like
Well,
in
I
the
think
middle.
it was all going great, and in our international retail was strong, although we couldn't really support things like Mecca and Bergdorf. So, but then at the same time, things, Detox Market came on board, and there were
Yes.
more Credo came on board. There were more outlets in the U.S., and that was great, and Beauty Heroes, and lots of nice
Yes.
little things were happening in the U.S. And in other countries too, they started to take notice in, other countries. I can't remember which ones, but we were in Latin America and the Middle East. And there was
Yes.
always just like something, Korea, there was just always kind of
Yeah.
something that we could focus on, we could turn our attention to. And so we were, going along, and it was always, we kind of had to get used to like, okay, we lost one, but let's look over
Yes.
here and not be
Yes.
so demoralized every time a retailer drops you, because it happens. It
Right.
happened. It happens. Um,
Absolutely.
so we were doing well. We had some nice international partnerships, and then COVID hit, and so much of the boutiques, that we were partnering with shut
Yeah.
down, and everything went online. And the first year was fine, and then the second year, and I kind of lost interest myself, and I was,
Mm.
my head was somewhere else too. I was just focused on, keeping our family together and safe, and
Yeah.
was kind of took my eye off of the ball. And we were really, close to, I think, just, throwing in the towel at one point.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then this distributor in China discovered us
Mm.
through the, through the Detox Market. They discovered our brand,
Mm.
and they are connected to this one of the major influencers in China, beauty influencers in China. So all of
Mm.
a sudden, we got this tremendous exposure in China,
Wow.
and that distributor decided to really commit to us.
Wow.
And so we were so lucky that this happened, and it's driven our business, and it's just injected this new life in the business. Um, products that we're real sleeper products, fat, beautiful products, but our antioxidant mask, we cannot even keep in stock anymore. The Chinese and China, they're promoting it, and it's spilled over to the Chinese American consumer. Our retailers are seeing the effects of it. And it's just like, we're just have this new surge that, we're so lucky, just so lucky.
Absolutely. I remember, you were earlier this year, you were projecting 1,200% growth in 3 years, thanks to that China partnership.
Yeah, I don't know if we met our projections, because part of the problem was the accelerated growth of it, our, while all of a sudden we were having sourcing problems and meeting our meeting the growth. It was really
Right.
hard. So we missed some important deadlines. And so we didn't hit the original target, but it's still it was almost too much. So, we're trying to recalibrate a little bit, but,
That
so
is a great
that was a learning
opportunity, though.
lesson.
You can do it's always great when there's like a wait list because there's so much demand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But I hate to miss anything, there's so many
yeah, of
people
course.
waiting to fill the slack.
For sure.
And we didn't want to
So,
let anybody down. We didn't want to let our distribution partner down. We hated our retailers were saying, "Where's this product?" Because all of a sudden they can't keep it on their shelves anymore. And it's like,
wow.
finally we have this great, hot product, but we don't have it in stock. So,
Have you been able to catch up since then?
Yeah, we're in good shape
amazing.
now.
Amazing. So exciting.
But growth is tricky, it's like
Yeah.
managing your inventory from going to, very low turnover to very high turnover, and in managing how much your production run should be and forecasts, and making sure you have products in stock and turning them over quickly. It's a different kind of business for us than it was.
I kind of see this as like you've entered the PhD level of business ownership where, it's interesting. You have businesses that, they launch, they have a spike, they have growth, right? And then they hit their first challenge and it's just ebbs and flows and goes up and down.
Yeah.
And what I think is so powerful in what you just shared is in looking at this whole trajectory of like 15 years plus, you can see the sort of the journey, the ebbs and flows, the roller coaster, and each roller coaster, each bump that you get through, you just have this entire different perspective and experience and resilience, which actually makes you a more powerful business owner. But it just makes me think of all the people that quit too early, and even think, in your case, like I'm so, I'm glad that you shared that so honestly, like we were close to throwing in the towel and then, something turned around, like the universe just wanted you to keep going. And it's just, I don't know, do you have any reflections on, as you look back, do you have any reflections on like, wow, like, it was resilience that got me through, or it was this connection to the bigger purpose or this bigger why?
I think it's, we've been through a number of ebbs and flows now. And
yeah, exactly. You gotta get used to it.
Yeah. And even it's not a major ebb and flow. It's just like a hiccup or just a challenge or number of challenges that you just like, I don't think I can do this. This is just so hard. But you always get through it. You always get through it. And even when I'm in the middle of it, the thing that gives me some comfort is to just say, you know what, if you have to throw in the towel, you should be really proud of what you've done, and it's okay. And so that kind of like, don't worry too much. And like, you'll know when you actually can't do it anymore, but today's not that day.
I love that.
Might be tomorrow. If it is that day, you should be really proud of what you've done.
I hope not, because there's thousands and thousands of customers relying on your products. We need you.
Oh, that's nice.
Actually, speaking of customers, like, what kind of feedback have you received from people who've used Kahina products? Being around for 15 years, you probably have seen, I know that many of your customers have stayed with you for over a decade,
Yeah, it's really lovely. It's one of the things I love is I feel like I have a personal relationship with these customers. I recognize their names come up when they order, and sometimes I'll send an email. Some people call, like with this one person we love just calls all the time. She'll call on the weekend, and my husband, Jim, will usually pick it up and they talk about, the Peloton or whatever. spitball or whatever. It's so funny. They know, like we really do love our customers, and it's really nice to see how loyal so many of them have been over the years. And we have a really strong returning customer rate. So, and then I hope with these new customers, they keep returning. Just seem to be.
Yeah. Given the sort of ebbs and flows of the business, did you ever consider bringing on an investor? And why not?
We liked having the control. We, and we were able to kind of, because we just work, it's my husband and my daughter and I, and we outsource everything else. We can kind of scale up and down. And so we just never found the right partnership with somebody who would not take over who would help us grow the business instead of, not just putting money in, but really have a synergistic partnership.
Absolutely. It seems like one of the things that you've enjoyed with this business is that it is flexible and it can sort of adapt to your life. And you had already had your family when you started Kahina. And so the brand was sort of built around the family versus the other way around, like building the family around the business. Would you say that to be true?
Well, I don't know if my kids would say that. But no, it all works. I have one of them at home right now. So it all works together. They've been very much a part of it. I said my daughter, who works for us, she's just the perfect employee. First of all, she's 31, and she's very in tune with a different mindset of a different generation than mine. And because she grew up with the brand, she lives the DNA of the brand. She lives and breathes it. She understands it so well. So I think that it really is the family feels like Kahina's kind of just another sibling. It's just something that's been there. They love it. They all feel like they're proud of me. So the business is built into the family. Let's say it's not around or under or anything. It's just part
working
of it
together.
Yeah,
it's worked together. And what's your favorite Kahina product? And how do you use it in your routine?
Argan oil. I just still love argan oil. It's the one, like the other products, I cycle in and out. Like maybe I'll forget to use one or just won't, I'll be too lazy to use another. But I always, without fail, put argan oil on my face. It doesn't feel right without it. It's easy. It's a one simple thing that you can do to just balance your skin and nourish and moisturize. And it just, and then it's, you can use it over your whole body. So, and then I put it in my hair after. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So that's the one. And then I travel with it. It's so perfect for travel.
Absolutely, because it's multi-purpose, so you don't have to you don't have to bring multiple products. You can just bring one.
Right.
So, what would you say is the legacy you hope Kahina leaves behind?
I hope that my kids continue to be proud of me, and that we actually leave a strong impact in the lives of the Berber women, that we really are able with our growth to really make change there and really help people. And I hope that it sets an example for other companies that they will, really create more sustainable brands and sustainable products and have ethical sourcing at the heart of their vision. That's what I would like to see.
I love that. And I love that you, part of it is like inspiring future businesses, future brands, and how they operate. And
It
I think
matters.
just hearing your story in such depth, I hope it inspires our founders who are listening to this to, really be conscientious about how they're building their business and know that it's okay for it to take longer, and it's okay for it to take more steps and to dig deeper, because I think there's so much fast beauty now out there. I wouldn't even say fast beauty, but it's like product, like it's just like random products getting put on the market and then they like disappear in a year or two.
No, it matters so much. I mean, not just, it matters so much environmentally. I mean, we're, really facing a climate crisis. We are running out of so many of these ingredients. Plastics are filling our ocean. These things are important. That what we are putting out in the world have real implications. It's got to be so much more than just a business and making a buck. It's just got to be. This is really, we're at a crucial time, and you just have to be thoughtful about everything that you do, especially if you are responsible for putting something out in the world that people are going to use. I feel just so strongly about it, and that's what I lose sleep over. It's like, think about these things that you are putting out in the world. Don't just do it because you can make some money off of it. It's really, really important.
Yeah.
And it affects people. It affects the people who live in these impoverished countries, who are growing these ingredients, or they're living with the ramifications of the plastics and the oceans. It matters. It's so important. And cosmetics, this industry is one of the biggest, abusers, the biggest contributors to the pollution and
Absolutely.
and our problems with agriculture. So I could go on this, but the resources that we're using for cosmetics can be used to grow food, and we just have to be really careful about how we think about these things, and really think about things. Don't just go into this because you think you have an idea and you can make some money off of it. It's important.
Yeah. I love that you shared that, because I do think the founders that are in our community are very much impact driven. Yeah. And I think hearing your story of how you went about it and what it even took to partner with this community, just even I wanted to put a pin in this of listening to what the needs are versus telling somebody, oh, I see this is what you need a school or whatever, but they are not necessarily saying that that's what they need. Is the fact that you're leading with listening and responding to that, and also the fact that you pulled out of or chose not to continue to work with certain retailers or certain investors because they wanted new, more, which goes against your ethics as a brand, as a business. I think that's what's allowed you to stay, have a footing in this industry for so long. I do believe that.
Like, know what your limitations are too. It's like, if a retailer, I know it feels great to be included, but if it just doesn't work for you, it doesn't make you feel good, and it's too much work, don't do it. Yeah. Find where it works for you in the whatever area of the business you want to be in, and be happy in that lane. There's plenty of room for everyone. You don't have to be the biggest. You don't have to be. Just do what you do, and know your limitations, and
absolutely
happy. Just be happy and proud of what you're doing.
So, tell me what's in store for Kahina 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
We're in a good place. Happy working with my husband and our daughter, and we just want to keep growing the business. Wanting to do anything else, just keep growing. We are listening to our customers, and if they, with this new audience that we have, there might be new products that we go in that direction, but no big changes are afoot. No, nothing.
And are you paying yourself now?
I am.
Yeah. Fantastic. When did that start?
Last year. No, I
Amazing.
was paying myself a very little bit like until last year. And it's not a lot. I mean, it's not, but yes, finally. It feels good,
Amazing.
to work really hard. We all work really hard. But
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to hear it. And last question is, what advice would you give someone who wants to build a business that is both purpose driven and profitable?
don't expect to make too much money. And you will have to, it takes a bit of investment too. And be really clear on your vision and stick with it. Like, don't stick. It's
Mm,
hard, but you have to stick to it, because the idea of doing something that's purpose driven is a lot of it is building your trust with your consumers. And if you lose that, you kind of lose everything. So you have to really stick with what you believe in, and your word is your word, and keep doing it. I think a lot,
mhm.
So yeah, have a clear vision, be passionate enough to keep with it, and yeah, and you'll spend more than you thought you would.
Actually, I do have a follow-up question to that, which is, you mentioned initially when you started Kahina, you made a small investment into the business. Are you willing to share what that amount was? Just for
Oh my
like
gosh. Okay. Well, the
perspective.
first was like an $800 plane ticket to Morocco. And
Right.
even that I thought was, oh my God, I don't want to waste this $800 on plane ticket to Morocco. But then I guess packaging is like when we got really serious. Oh, and then I, shipped some argan oil back, and in the early days, it was just, Yahoo Small Business web, design my own website. But when we got serious, it was when we decided to do the packaging, and I hired a designer, and I think that was $30,000. And that was like, okay, this is serious. I'm doing this now.
Right.
And then he said, well, you're probably going to have to spend $100,000. And I'm like, no.
Oh my God.
We'll be so careful. But the big, printing boxes is hugely expensive.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
that was the shocker, that the box printing, because those are the kind of the initial upfront on the packaging, including boxes and the package and the graphic designer.
And what do you
Like,
think it takes to start a business, like in terms of investment? Like, if you had to start this business all over again, what do you think? What type of investment do you think one can start with now,
oh
or
my
needs to
God,
start
I
with?
have no idea. We're talking about $2007. I don't know. Uh, I mean, I would just get, I think another important thing that we did that I wasn't expecting up front was to get products registered and certified. And those are additional expenses.
Mhm.
The other really important thing that we did to hit the ground running was to, I hired a great PR person, and I hired a great salesperson, just so we were
Hmm.
ready to go from the
That's
start.
smart. That's so
And
smart.
I know I paid my PR person $3,000 a month, and I paid my salesperson $2,000 a month, and but they were worth it, and that paid for
Wow.
itself. And but
Hmm.
those two things, so there was no wasted time, and they knew,
Wow.
having the PR, and at the time print PR was everything. That
Mm-hmm.
really helped us get into the retailers that we needed. That was really key.
Wow.
And
Hmm.
the salesperson really helped me to get our presentation together, and she knew and our pricing strategy, and she really
Mm-hmm.
knew what retailers wanted, and she really helped us refine our presentation. And so those were investments that, do you have to do that? I don't know, but I'm really glad that I did. And registration is super, to be prepared to sell in the EU and be prepared to sell in the UK. And that's an
Mm-hmm.
expense too. get certified, I don't know, all those things that help you tell your story or help you be prepared for when the opportunity arises. But I would say the biggest upfront cost is probably your packaging. And so,
Yes,
depending how big
absolutely.
you are, a lot of things have minimums. I don't know. I'll
Yeah,
go with
absolutely.
$100,000 again.
I think that sounds, yeah, I think that sounds right. I mean, of course, we see everything. We see people starting
Right.
it with 20,000. We see people starting with 500,000.
Right.
And everything in between. So it's just a matter of like how you decide to do it. But I love that you share that you hired like your first, like you immediately hired a salesperson and a PR person to hit the ground running. I think that was so smart because sales and marketing aren't everything in the beginning. Nowadays it might be, TikTok instead of, depending of course on the target customer, but TikTok and investing like so much time and effort into, getting the brand out on TikTok because that's where retailers and buyers rather are looking for new
I have to,
brands.
see, we haven't done that. I have to say that meta advertising is like a little not, doesn't have, I'm not sure I see the returns on that. So I don't really
Mm,
know. I know that the influencer in China has made a huge difference for us. So I suspect that is, probably something that you really do see returns, but
yes.
I'm
Do you
not
find someone
sure.
good?
Yeah, in the new landscape of public relations, I'm not really sure where the investment, where it really
Yeah.
lies.
I
But
really think
it's tricky.
from my experience, I think it's different for every brand. Like it really
Yeah,
is. Like it's not like one cookie cutter, one solution. It truly is like this is specific to this brand or this is specific to this brand. And what's really nice is that there's so many different ways to market and sell a business now that it doesn't have to be like, oh, you have to do just this one thing and invest in just this one thing. It can be this or that. And every brand has its own path, I would say.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we're old. We're kind of old. I mean, I'm a little old. We appeal to a
Oh,
mature audience, so that's going to be different. Like TikTok, I'm not sure. I don't know
yeah,
enough about it, but I don't know if that's the right audience for us. So
yeah, for
I
sure.
find that having retailers amplify you, like really getting those retailer boxes and to help them tell the story, just get them to their customers, is helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Catherine. This has been so eye-opening. I always love hearing the Kahina story. Every time you tell it, it's like I learn a little bit more and a little bit more, and it just creates this very multidimensional perspective and view on the brand. And I just loved being a part of the, last few years of the Kahina evolution and all the successes you've been having recently. I'm so excited for all of it. So thank you.
You've been a huge help. Your resources and your advice has just been phenomenal for us, and it's been really, good to know that we've got you on our team. So
yes,
thank you for doing this
forever, and love the family too. So for all of you who are listening, thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Catherine, for joining us. If you like this episode, please like, share it, subscribe. We would absolutely love and appreciate a review. And until our next episode, bye, everyone.
Thank you, Aggie. Bye.